Thank you for joining the Small Business Bootcamp. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services. And we're excited to have you here with us today on this May 3rd. It's Tuesday morning, May 3rd, for our bootcamp session. As we like to do when we start the boot camps is we like to thank all of our community partners. This is just a sampling of the 120 plus community partners that have participated in the boot camp series and provided their time, their effort, and their expertise to give back and share that with all of you. For those not familiar with the Small Business Bootcamp, it is designed to help small businesses prepare, plan, and grow as they move forward. It is a statewide initiative supported by all of those community partners. And not only is it the weekly webinar every Tuesday morning and the occasional special session, but it also is a content library and a series of workshops we are doing with our community partners. So let's talk about those real quick. So the content library is the result of 2 years worth of bootcamp sessions. And we've recorded over 200 presentations, 200 webinars, and have those available to you in the content library on the bottom of our website. There's no cost to go back and view these, and we include not only the recorded webinar, but also, when possible, the slide deck from the presenters, which most of those have that, so you can follow along with the slide deck. It's a great resource. You can share the links, you can sort through the content library by the 7 different categories to help narrow it down. And if there's a specific topic you're looking for and you can't seem to find it, feel free to reach out to us and we can guide you to one of the sessions that may have had that information in it. So please be aware of that. Great resource. There's also some other programs that the Arizona Commerce Authority has to help support small businesses. We have our Small Business Services, our Workforce Division, and our Arizona MEP. And they're all here to help support small businesses as they grow, go through the different stages of growth in your business. Additionally, for those entrepreneurs looking to start a business and or expand their business into a different product line or different area of the state, we have our small business checklist. And this can help you identify the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal levels. Additionally, we'd like to transition now into some updates, and there's some good updates we want to talk about. First, we have the Back to Work Hiring and Retention Program. The governor announced a version 2 of this, or round 2 of the funding, with additional $5 million for that grant program. We're going to post the link in the chat for this information. And one of the key things is on the eCivis page for that program, where you apply for the program, there's some contact information. So if you have questions about that, the best place to go is that contact tab and contact the program directly. So you can go directly to the people that are running that grant program. Also, the Tucson Metro Chamber is hosting the Business Summit and Expo coming up. And so we are going to post that information in the chat. It's got a great lineup of presenters. It's a really exciting event. I'm going to be down there for it and excited to be part of it. And then this week is SCORE's National Small Business Week. And SCORE is an SBA program in the local areas. It's run by volunteers that are usually retired executives wanting to give back their time to help small business owners start and grow their businesses. There's no cost to utilize the SCORE volunteers, but every week SCORE hosts with the SBA the National Small Business Week. And yesterday it kicked off, and Administrator Guzman, who runs the Small Business Administration, kicked it off and had a great little speech there. So there's a lot of good content being shared this week as well as that. So again, we'll post these links in the chat so you can access them and get that information. With that, we want to talk about some of our upcoming sessions and workshops. So this Friday morning, we have one of our Small Business Bootcamp workshops. It's a 3-hour workshop in partnership with the Phoenix Business Journal, Wells Fargo, the law firm of Gallagher and Kennedy, the accounting firm of REDW, and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona, as well as the small business development centers. And we're really excited about this. It's talking about access to capital and other resources to grow your business. Looking for businesses that are already existing and looking to grow and expand in the coming year and years. It is in person with a Zoom option. So we hope you can make it in person, but if you can't make it in person, there is a Zoom option to attend. So you can pop in or out, depending on which section you want to see. We do have that agenda listed so you can see what time each presentation is at, but we're really excited to host that. It's actually at our offices in Phoenix, and we list the address and the parking information there. So please join us in person if you can, but if not, join us remotely for that workshop. Then next Tuesday, we have Bookkeeping Made Easy. We're really looking forward to this presentation from Pedro Alvarez, who's part of Jacama por la Causa, and Prestamo CDFI. And talk about some different options and solutions to help you keep track of your transactions, accountables, financial statements, and more. So we're really excited about that session. And then Tuesday, May 17th, where you are and where you want to be. We've got David Rafidi with that one. We're really excited to have him back. It's a great presentation, so check that out. He's been with us before. And then on Tuesday, May 24th, we're going to talk about 5 cybersecurity tips to avoid being hacked. We know there's a lot of hacking going on out there, even more so lately, so we want to bring this to you. We've got Mark Kirsten from Cosant Cybersecurity and Timothy Hay from Phoenix IT are going to help share that information. So we're really excited about that one as well. So great content coming up. Hope you can join us for those. But with that, we want to jump into today's session and give all the time we can to Gabriela Cervantes. She's a marketing specialist with the law firm of Snell and Wilmer. And we're really excited to have her with us today so she can share her experience and content around LinkedIn. So with that, Gabriela, I'm going to stop sharing and turn the time over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me this morning. And thank you for everyone who is taking time out of their busy schedules to learn a little bit more about LinkedIn. I was just casually mentioning earlier that LinkedIn has been around for about 2 decades, but really the last couple of years, LinkedIn has really exploded. And maybe it's because people are now doing their networking more online than in person. But so anyway, thank you so much again, and we will get started.
Real quick, Gabriela, I forgot to mention some, and Faith just put this in the chat. We know you're going to have some questions about this topic, so please place those in the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a couple little kind of boxes that it says Q&A right underneath them. Please post your questions in the Q&A so they don't get lost in the chat, because we know there's going to be some questions come up. And then Gabby also mentioned that she's got a lot of content and some of your questions may get covered later on in the presentation. So with that, again, sorry, Gabrielle, we'll flip that back over to you so you can jump right in.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for mentioning that. So yeah, hopefully we'll answer some of the questions as the presentation continues, but if you need some more details, I'll be happy to answer that towards the end. So some of the things that we'll be covering in the presentation: why LinkedIn when there are other platforms? Why use LinkedIn over some of those? We'll talk a little bit about building a company page and building a personal page, and why those two are very important, even for a business to have a personal page. Facilitating engagement, researching and follow-up, and then just a couple of resources, articles that might be helpful as you start getting a little bit more acquainted with LinkedIn. So first, why use LinkedIn? Oh, there we go. So LinkedIn has over 800 members in 200 countries around the world. And it's actually not surprising that out of the 185 million users that we have in the United States, that means that almost 650 are actually outside of the US. So this is actually kind of helpful for those organizations that are trying to reach a market, a broader global market outside of the United States. There's quite a bit of engagement all over the world. Sorry, going from one slide to the next is really slow for some reason. Then a couple of other things that are interesting about LinkedIn users is that sort of the frequency that you can see on this chart of how often users are on LinkedIn. I would probably fall under the several times a day user at 9%, but even at several times a week, which is 25%, that's still a pretty good amount of engagement that happens in LinkedIn, and why LinkedIn is actually such a great platform for businesses. A couple of just interesting numbers that I was finding as I was doing some research. 31 times is the number of times your profile is more likely to be discovered by simply listing 5 skills. And we'll go through the different sections on a profile. You'll see that there's a section on skills. And if you include at least 5 skills, then you're 31 times more likely to have your profile viewed and discovered. 50% of people in the US with a bachelor's or an advanced degree use LinkedIn. And so this is really helpful if you're one of those businesses who is trying to recruit some employees. So right now there's a lot of recruitment going on in LinkedIn. There's a section where you can click on jobs. And so people can post any open jobs. There are a lot of interviews that are happening through LinkedIn. There's a lot of just recruitment activity going on through LinkedIn. 80% of business to business leads come from LinkedIn. So now you're thinking about the vast number of potential customers that you have out there out of the 810 million LinkedIn users. LinkedIn is 277% more effective at generating leads than Twitter and Facebook. And part of it is probably that with Twitter and Facebook in particular, those tend to be more personal social platforms, whereas LinkedIn really has always had that business foundation. People will still post personal things and birthdays and maybe some family pictures here and there. But for the most part, LinkedIn has really secured itself as the platform where people go to do business or to read about their particular industry. So there's definitely a lot more of that business activity going on versus personal activity that happens with the other ones. So LinkedIn really is the most credible source of content when it comes to professional content. Now, in terms of building a company page, we'll go through both building a company page and sort of making your personal page more robust. But when it comes to building a company page, it's actually really easy. And then just a couple of things to keep in mind. You have your organizational page where you can talk more about your organization's story, pictures, sales, information about your product or service, just a lot of different ways to engage with your clients or prospects. You can also have showcase pages. So if maybe you have a new product or a new service that will become available to your clients or prospects, then you can create showcase pages that will let people know that this new product is coming up. So essentially, it puts a spotlight on a product or service. You can have long form posts, and actually you can do that on your personal pages as well. And what that essentially is that you can publish long articles, you can publish blogs, you can publish things that will make you the subject matter expert in your field. And so you can publish longer items and have that as a way to engage with your audience. Native video, again, is something that you can also use on your personal page. And LinkedIn just makes it very easy to integrate any video and other types of media into your pages. LinkedIn groups are really helpful because, again, you can connect with other groups or organizations that are part of your industry, or you can create your own groups. So especially if you have a very niche type of product or service that you offer, then you're able to create your own group and share information with other people who might be interested. And of course, there's paid advertisement. So similar to Google Ads and other platforms, they have their own paid ads. You can do the same thing. You can have sponsored content. You can have sponsored messages. So there are those opportunities as well. Okay. So to start off in building a company page, if you already have your own personal page, which you really need to have a personal page before you can create a company page, because then you need to set yourself up as the administrator for the company page. All you have to do is you log in to LinkedIn, and you will go on this. This is going to show up on the top right corner of your profile. This little thing that says work. Once you click on that, this whole menu will pop out. And then at the bottom of that, you've got create a company page. And so that's pretty easy. And then it'll ask you what type of company or what kind of page you want to create. So we talked about showcase pages, but you really don't want to do that until you have a company page. There's also pages for educational institutions, but again, we're just focusing on your small, medium, or large business page that you will be creating later on. You can add showcase pages, which are essentially sub pages to your company page. And so after you click to create a company page, then you'll have another page pop up that you can start populating with the info of your company, your LinkedIn public URL, which really you want to customize, because the way that LinkedIn will name your page, it'll have a bunch of numbers and characters and things like that. So you don't want it to be like linkedin.com/4793GW blah blah. You want to customize that to the extent possible, and maybe if you have for example, the let me think. If your company name is, the Arizona Commerce Authority, then you could have linkedin.com/Arizona Commerce Authority or ACA. So you really do want to customize the URL so that it's easy to find and it's just also easy to remember. You'll add your website, you'll add the details about your industry. You can add a picture, a tagline. I mean, this is the part where you really can expand on your company page, write all of the information, your contact info. You could even include the hours that you're open, all kinds of things about your company page. So it's really, really that easy. Once you do those things, you just click OK, and then it populates your company page with all of the information that you filled out in that one page. So that's pretty easy. Now we're going to transition a little bit into personal pages. And before we do that and really talk about personal pages, one of the reasons why it's important to have a really strong and robust personal page, even if you're focusing on your business, is actually a couple of reasons. If you're the type of business that is a service, so you're a service provider, you're a doctor, you're a consultant, you have that type of business where a lot of your company's reputation is selling yourself, selling your expertise and your knowledge, then who you are as a business owner is really intrinsically tied with your organization. So you can have your company page, you can have ABC Consulting, but if you're the owner of ABC Consulting, then you want to make sure that your personal page is filled out as much as possible, that you engage, that you provide activity, that you post, that you share, that you like, all of that, because invariably your personal page and your knowledge is going to be tied to the reputation of your organization. So even if you're like a doctor, a private practitioner, a therapist, there are a lot of different companies that the face of the owner is just so important. And that's why we're going to focus so much on personal pages. And especially as you're first starting out and you're getting the word out about your organization, that's why it's also really important to focus on your personal page. And you can still post things and share them into your organization's company page. But really there has to be this simultaneous focus of having a great company page and also having an engaging personal page. So on some tips on building your personal page. And a lot of these are actually relevant also to your organizational page. You want to optimize, you want to use high quality graphics. For both your company page and your personal page, try to avoid the personal pictures, family pictures, kids, getting drunk at a party, like bottles of alcohol in the background. Be very mindful of the type of graphics that you're using. And if you want to have something that's kind of personal, but not involving your family or anything like that, maybe you can post a picture of Tucson or Phoenix, or just something that shows where you and your company are located. So for example, on mine, I go to Tumamoc quite a bit. So I took a really cool night picture of Tucson. And so it's personal because I took the picture, but at the same time, it shows where I live, where I work, things like that. So just remember to use high quality graphics on either of your company or personal pages. You want to be thorough. You want to complete the various sections. There are something like 14 sections, something like that. There's more than a dozen sections on your personal LinkedIn page. And so you want to make sure that you take advantage of all those sections and fill them out as completely as possible. You want to customize, like I said earlier with the company page, you want to replace the standard URL that LinkedIn provides, customize that to something that is more relevant to you. It can be a little bit trickier with personal pages because you might have a name that's common or initials that somebody has already used for their personal page. So you can try a couple of different variations, or you can include like your profession or what you do, like Joe the accountant as your customized URL instead of your first and your last name. So you can get a little bit creative with that. You want to make sure to review your analytics. There is a dashboard that lets you know how many people have looked at your profile, how long they stayed on the page, how they found you, what kind of engagement you've had on your posts and your activity. So make sure that you review that. You don't have to look at it every day, but make sure that you are familiar with the analytics that LinkedIn provides. And of course, use the resources that are available on LinkedIn. Manage your network, keep track of courses, keep track of articles. There's just a lot that you can do. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of those resources. So again, as I mentioned, customizing your URL can be pretty important. It's kind of tricky only because it's not very apparent where you can do that. But on this one, on my example, this is actually my personal example because that's the name of my website and that's what I have on business cards. And since I have my name misspelled a lot, then my brand is Gabriella with 1L. So that's what I use as my customized LinkedIn URL. So if you want to change the URL that LinkedIn has given you, you're going to have to, once you're logged in to LinkedIn, on the upper right, you will see this, edit public profile and URL. And then you'll click to edit your custom URL. And then you want to click on the pencil. And every time you see a little pencil like that, it just means that that's a field that you are able to edit. So you will see that throughout your profile as you're creating your company or your personal page. And you'll see it in all the different sections, this little pencil. So then once you click on the pencil, then you'll have a field that you're able to type into and customize your URL. And of course, there's parameters for which you can do that. So it, letters and numbers, no spaces, symbols, things like that. Then once you click save, that is it. So as I mentioned, this is the picture that I took myself of Tumamoc, and it's just kind of reflective of the environment where I'm at in Tucson. You want to use a current professional picture of yourself. I totally get it when people use a picture from 20 years ago. I would love to look the way I did 20 years ago, and so I would love to use an older picture. But I try to use a current picture so that if I see people out on the street and they can recognize me because I look the same. So make sure to use a high quality graphic, use a high quality headshot, and say a little bit about what you do. Depending on what you do, maybe you want it to be a little bit more specific to your title. You could say CEO of ABC Consulting, or something that has been quite more popular is going beyond the title and slightly explaining a little bit what you do. And so in mine, I talk a little bit about connecting people through marketing. So again, you can see all the different pencils on the sides, which means that you're able to edit those sections. Now, another section below the top of your profile is a featured section. So the featured section, you can upload pictures, articles, maybe if you're hiring, you can do that. And the reason why the featured section is important is because whatever you upload on your featured section will always appear at that sort of higher area of your profile. Whereas the other activity that you have, it'll only, it'll change as you have more activity, as you post and share and like and things like that. But your featured section will always be the same. So the most important things that you want to showcase on a personal page, you can include those on your featured section. Okay, so on the left, you can see all the different sections of your LinkedIn profile, and you can see there's a bunch of them. We won't go through all of them, but I will be highlighting a couple of sections that I think are important when you're putting together your personal page. Of course, your about section is really important. Some people, attorneys will do this a lot, or accountants. If they have a profile on their company's page, they will copy that, they will do the same thing. What I like to do with the about section is, since you'll have all of your education and experience and all of these other sections in your profile, I like to include things that people wouldn't be able to know about you just by looking at the other sections. So I think the about section is probably where you can get a little bit more personal. You know, I talk about my love of travel and some different specialties that I have. So you can do a little bit more about you, again, without getting too personal. But it's kind of a combination of who you are as a person, as a professional, and not focusing as much on some of the things under your experience or education, because then it would sound repetitive and people don't want to read the same thing again. So that's a section that you really want to think about. You also might want to use this section as a place where you can put in certain keywords. You can, my second paragraph is all keywords essentially. So if somebody is searching for those keywords on the LinkedIn search bar, then they might be able to pick up my profile based on those keywords. So this is a section that you don't want to take lightly. You really want to think about it, and make sure that it says a little bit about who you are as a person, as a professional, but also you can optimize it by using the appropriate keywords. The skills section is that section that I was mentioning earlier, that if you have at least 5 skills listed in the skills section, you are that much more likely to be found and discovered while people are searching on LinkedIn. So you can add all of the skills that you think you have. And if you're really good, hopefully you'll get endorsed by clients, by customers, by coworkers, by people out in the community who can essentially say, yes, this person really is that good in this particular skill. And so this is something that is really helpful because it helps build your reputation as a subject matter expert in your field by including skills that are relevant to the work that you do, and hopefully getting endorsed by other people stating that, yes, you are in fact a subject matter in that area and you do really have that skill. And this section for Take Skill Quiz, if you're not sure like what you're really good at, and that happens to all of us. I'm constantly thinking like, what do I want to be when I grow up and what am I really good at? Then you can take the skill quiz and it'll help figure out what you're good at, or maybe you think you're really good at something, but maybe you're better at something else. So, you know, it's more of a fun thing that can help bring some clarity about what your skills are. So I would recommend that if you have a few minutes to take the skills quiz. All right, so recommendations like endorsements are really great to have in your personal page. You can ask people for recommendations. Don't feel like you can't do that. If you have a particularly good relationship with a client, with a customer, with a coworker, you can always ask if they would be willing to write a recommendation. Of course, if they write one without you asking, that's awesome as well. And so essentially, again, the recommendations will tell the people who are viewing your page that you have certain skills that are valuable and that other people see as valuable. They can write about how great you are to work with, how you provide wonderful payment terms, or you're very easy to reach or whatnot. You know, they could be talking about a lot of different things. And so the recommendation section really helps to show that you're subject matter expert. It builds a reputation. It shows how great you are to work with. Likewise, if you can see the section received and given, you know, give back some love. If there are people that you work with, people that you do business with, that you're really happy with, I know that they would greatly appreciate it if you could write a recommendation on their behalf. Don't wait for someone to ask you to write something. If you've had a great business experience with someone, whether it's a company or a service provider, just write them a recommendation. And I know that they will greatly appreciate that. And who knows, depending on who that person is and the business relationship that you have, they might write one for you too. But if you're able to, I know it'll just be greatly appreciated. And then the last section that I'm going to focus on of all these big sections is interests. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of times people feel that they don't have the time to really have a lot of engagement in their own pages. They don't have the time to write or post or share or whatnot. But when you start following companies, and you can follow them at, the school section, like if your alma mater that you want to follow, groups tend to be more like industry groups that you might want to follow. Companies, those could be companies that you're currently doing business with or that you admire and you just want to follow and see what they have to say on LinkedIn. So all of those sections, the nice thing about following other companies and groups and schools in this interest section is that it helps provide content that you can later engage with by liking or sharing things. That way you don't feel like your page doesn't have a lot to it and it's not being populated by anything of interest. When you follow other companies, what they post will show up on LinkedIn when you first log in. And so if you see something that you like it, you can share it, you can write commentary on it, and it just gives you more opportunities to engage with your own page. And the reason why engagement is really important is because the more activity you have in your own page on the back end, the algorithm side, then being more engaged means that LinkedIn sees your page as more active, which means that it'll be easier to find. It will show up higher on search results. So there are some reasons why it's helpful to be engaged and have activity with your page. And so following companies in the interests section helps provide some of the content for you to be active in your page. And again, you can see this full list of a bunch of different things here that are available for you to write about, your education, your licenses and certifications for certain businesses. Those can be really important. Volunteering, it's really important, especially on personal pages, that people see you not just as a service provider, as a representative for a company, but as a whole person. And especially nowadays, people want to support companies, want to support organizations, and want to support service providers who are engaged with their community. So including information on the type of volunteering that you are doing can be a great way just for people to get to know you a little bit more. We talked about recommendations, but publications, courses, projects, any major thing that you want to showcase, you can add all of that. Honors and awards. Languages can be really important if you're a Spanish speaker, if you're bilingual, if you do American Sign Language, anything really. The thing to know about all of these different sections is that they're all ways in which people can get to know you, and you can build your reputation and you can connect with people. So the more you have under all of these sections, and ideally you want to have something in all these sections, then the easier it is for people and for companies to engage with you and your company. So, I've mentioned a little bit here and there about engagement, but really, how do you facilitate engagement? How do you make it easier for other people to engage with you on your LinkedIn page? You can post new content. And as I said earlier, the long form posts, those are the really longer articles. You can post videos, you can post presentations. If you like doing podcasts, they're really popular. So you can do that and post your podcast or link to your podcast. That is great. You can also don't feel like you have to just constantly write all these articles. As long as you're able to engage in some shape or form, that's really the important part. So you can comment if you are following a former colleague and they've just gotten a new job, and all you have to do is just say, hey, congratulations on your new job. And that's enough to be considered an activity or an engagement. Simply sharing or liking, you don't even have to provide commentary when you share. You can just share and that's it. When you like something, you can do that. There's also other ways aside from content in which you can engage with other people. You can create target ads. So there are certain people that you're trying to target and get to your page. Well, there are those ad opportunities that you can do on LinkedIn so that they show up on your page or they show up on other people's pages, and get them back to your website. You can make sure to include your website on LinkedIn. Unless for some reason you're doing all of your business on LinkedIn, it's really important to include your website and ideally all the other ways in which people can connect with you or your company. What's the phone number? What's the email address? Do you have a Twitter account? Do you have any other ways of having people connect with you? And of course, hashtags. So hashtags, essentially what they are ways to organize content. So what you want to do is whenever you write something, then you can include a hashtag so that people who are searching for that particular hashtag can see your article. So let's say that like recruitment is a really popular hashtag. And by the way, there are ways in which you can do some research on LinkedIn and see which hashtags are most popular right now. And so if you write something and you include a hashtag on something that's popular, then it's more likely to be found by all the people who subscribe or who research those particular hashtags. There's a quick question that came up on the little pencil that shows up in the different sections, but not on interests. So in the interest section, you're not really editing that section. All you're doing is when you're in the interest section, there's a search bar. And so you can search for companies that you would like to follow. And all you have to do is click on either a plus sign or just click on follow. And that's all you do. But at some point, you can also look at every company, every influencer that you're following. And let's say that you no longer want to follow them, so you can not follow them anymore. So you can manage everyone that you are following or that you're connected to in terms of your interests, companies, schools, organizations, all of that. There was a question that came up on premium, and actually I have a slide later on premium, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay, so as I was talking about hashtags, on this particular post that I did about 2-3 weeks ago, I used the hashtags interviewing job interviews, and of course the one that I use just on my own, because again, hashtags are a way to easily find anything under that hashtag. That one had something like 140,000 views after about a week. And I think the reason why that particular post did really well in such a short period of time, not so much because what I wrote was, that enlightening, but the hashtags interviewing in job interviews are very popular and they're followed by a lot of people. So if you're using hashtags that are read a lot, then your particular post using that hashtag will get a lot more views than maybe some other hashtags that are not as popular. So that's really the important part of using hashtags and how it can be helpful to get your posts and your info out into the world to a higher number of viewers. These are a couple of other examples of what I think are kind of great posts. So the one on donuts is actually considered a long form post, and don't feel like you can't have humor when you're writing something that's company related. This is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, that's 5 paragraphs of kind of great content that Krispy Kreme ended up getting a lot of engagement from people who are on LinkedIn. The Vantage West Credit Union, I really like it because, again, it makes it feel less of a company and more of a community partner. So anytime that you have pictures or you can post something on the things that you and your company and your coworkers are doing out in the community is really great. It's another great way for people to connect with your organization, and it feels less about just selling a product or a service and more about connecting with people in the community. These are other things in which you can, other things that you can do to facilitate engagement. So the one on the left, Sage, they're talking about their new maternity return policy. So you can post things based on new policies that you have, new products, new different things, new things that are going on with your company. The one on the side, on the right, it's a woman who posts a lot of videos providing tips on job interviews and provides career advice and things like that. Her videos tend to be really short. They tend to be about a minute or shorter, and they just get a lot of views. You can also see that she's got, hashtag career advice, which I have a feeling that's probably a pretty popular hashtag. And so her post will likely get a lot of engagement and a lot of views. Here are a couple more. These are actually paid ads. So you'll see how one of them says open reel on the left, it shows promoted. And the one on the right, it shows, it labels it as sponsored. So this one, what's interesting about this one is that it shows up on your messages. So it almost looks like somebody sent you a personal message, but it's a company. So that's a way that you can reach a different audience. If you're trying to do some paid advertisement, you can do it through paid messages, or like Open Reel, you can do that with regular ads that show up once you log into LinkedIn. Okay, so is premium worth it? It depends. I've had premium before. LinkedIn often has specials where you can have it for free for 30 days and it lets you check it out. It just really depends on what you're trying to do. So for the usual typical user, I think that LinkedIn probably has enough free options that you wouldn't need it. There are a lot of different things that are available out there. There are a lot of tools that you can use for free that people don't use. And so I think that you're probably fine not having a paid version. But if you're a recruiter for a company, then the hiring premium option might be really helpful. It might let you do a lot more job postings. It might let you just target particular people who might be a good fit for your company. So it's hard to say yes or no if it's worth it. It just depends on your situation, what you're trying to get out of it. I know that I've used the career version before because they have a lot of great courses. There are some courses that are free if you have the regular free LinkedIn. There are some other courses that are only available if you have the premium career version. But I think there are plenty of free tools and free options where you don't need it. Again, it just depends on your particular situation and what your goal is in trying to use LinkedIn. So I guess that's a long answer. It just depends.
Gabrielle, I want to agree with you on that. It depends, because I've been there where I've used the premium in job search times when I've been out looking for work, and it's unfortunately, it's a time when you don't have money coming in and you're putting more out. It's been helpful there. But to me, the biggest thing with the premium versions is the access to LinkedIn Learning. And so if that's something that's important to you, then you may want to look at that, because there are a lot of good classes on LinkedIn Learning. But it may be something that you can take those classes in a month or two and then go back to the non-paid version. You don't have to commit for a year. So
if you work for a larger organization, some of them actually offer to their employees. I know that the University of Arizona does. And I'm assuming that ASU does the same thing. So if you're not sure, you can always check with the HR person in your office and see if they provide that, or maybe they would consider providing that. So they can have a corporate LinkedIn Learning account that's available for employees. So it really depends. It just depends. And then a couple more slides. I know we're getting towards the end of this, and we'll have some additional time for more questions. So, okay, you have your company page, you have your personal page, you engage, you like, you post. What's next? And the thing is that it doesn't have to end with just posting and liking and sharing. LinkedIn is great for researching and for follow-up. You can research your own contacts, you can follow prospects, you can follow companies. You can check, what are your competitors doing? What are the types of things they're posting? Are they using paid and sponsored content? If you have a company page on LinkedIn, then maybe encourage your own employees to connect with the company page. A lot of times with smaller businesses, it's really the employees that are fueling a lot of the activity, a lot of the comments, a lot of the sharing that happens. And so they're connecting with your page and then they're sharing it. And that means that they're getting it to their own networks, and maybe their own networks are sharing it too. So just encourage your employees to connect with your company page. And you can also calendar follow-up schedules with new connections and new prospects. So let's say that you go to an in-person networking event, then maybe try to remember to connect with that person that you talked to and that you connected with at that mixer. Although it's not here in this presentation, one thing that I would highly recommend is to download the app. If you're at the grocery store, just in a long line waiting to get to the cashier, then go on your LinkedIn app, and it really just takes a couple of seconds to look at something, like it, and then you're done with your engagement and your activity for the day. But also, if you go to Mixers, there is a tool that is only available on the app, where what happens is it'll kind of scan the room. It'll scan, I don't know if it's like 20 feet or 50 feet, but your phone will scan the approximate area where you're at a mixer, and it'll show all the other people who have LinkedIn that you can connect with right then and there. It's kind of crazy, maybe a little creepy, but it's just an easy way to connect with people immediately when you're at an in-person mixer. When you're on your own personal page, there is a section on the left where you can click on where it says Manage My Network. And so that's where you can see all of your connections. You can see, like on this particular example, it'll say, because you recently followed Headspace, you might want to follow all these other people who work in Headspace. So you're able to sort of do a little bit of research and see who else works at a particular organization that you might want to connect with. It also tells you, this is the part where you can research what are some of the trending hashtags in your network. People that you're connected to, what are they looking at? What are the hashtags they're using? What are hashtags recommended for you? So hashtag job seekers has almost 2 million followers. So if you post something and use hashtag job seekers, then it's very likely that it'll get viewed, or at least it'll be in the network of those 2 million followers for that particular hashtag. And then of course, you can also search different of your connections. You can also search by name. You can search, you can apply filters if you're looking for a particular person, or maybe someone in your network is connected to somebody else or a particular company. One of the things that I like is that one of the filters that I think is pretty cool is if you're doing some work for a nonprofit and you're looking for, let's say, board members. So there is a box that you can check so that anybody in your network who has shown an interest in joining a nonprofit board, you can click on that and it'll tell you of all of your connections who is interested in joining a nonprofit board, or who's interested in doing some pro bono consulting and volunteering. So there are a lot of different things that you can do in terms of additional research of the tools you already have and the connections you already have. And as promised, I'm including a couple of different, or actually 6 different articles where you can read on interesting statistics, best of LinkedIn pages if you want to get an idea, get inspired by some great LinkedIn pages. There's a step-by-step guide for creating a company page. So there's some really great information in all of those articles. And when this goes out to everybody, then you'll be able to see some of those articles and read some more. Oh, no, it's not going forward. So there's my info. If you have any more questions, and I'm going to check real quick on the chat to see if I missed anything. I know it's a lot. Like, you could really spend hours and hours and hours talking about LinkedIn and going through all the different sections. There's so much you can do with it. There's so many tools available for you, and many of them are available for free. So it's really a great platform to use for small businesses. And I would say even particularly for entrepreneurs and solo business owners, people who are just getting started. This is just, LinkedIn has a lot of different things that can be really helpful.
So Gabrielle, I don't know if you saw all the questions in the Q&A. There's 4 pretty good questions, so we might be able to squeeze these in real quick. It says, can you make LinkedIn groups if you don't have a company page?
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Can you make LinkedIn groups if you don't have a company page?
I believe you can, and I can double check on that. As long as you have a personal page, you can create a group. You don't have to have a company page for that, but you do have to have a personal page to do most of the things that you need to do.
And then there's a few other questions, but we are running out of time, but I'm gonna, we have Barbie, Tina, and Julie ask some questions. And I've got one kind of quick summary from my experience with LinkedIn, is that LinkedIn has a lot of tools on their help page as well on how to do things within LinkedIn. And one's asking about analytics or understanding it better to get the most out of LinkedIn and personal profile stuff. I would check on those pages. Those help pages are tremendous. They can share a lot of information on how to do the different things on LinkedIn as well. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, as soon as you log into your to LinkedIn and you go to your page, you'll be able to see analytics and other information that is only available to you and nobody else will see it.
Excellent. All right, so with that, we are at time. We want to thank Gabriella for this great presentation on LinkedIn. There's so much to do in there. I will admit that during this presentation, I took one of those points that Gabriella made and went and made an update on my LinkedIn page. Something I didn't have, so added it there, and I've been using LinkedIn for a while as well. So thank you for that great information. We're glad that everybody could join with us. And we will wrap up today, but we also hope that you have a great week and you can join us on Friday for our workshop and again next Tuesday for our next boot camp. Until then, again, be safe and have a great week. Thank you.